Geez, ooh, um, you're getting me with the longest sleep I've had in I don't know how many years. I woke up after 7 a.m. today. So you're getting this show produced on half making breakfast and a few notes while I was on Twitter, but it's gonna be one of the best ones ever. I promise you it's gonna be one of the best ones ever. So sorry to keep you all waiting. I'm gonna skip some of your good mornings because we are late. We are late. Oh no, I was going to go to sleep and then this happened. Good morning, friends. Don't let anyone tell you how you can or cannot use Bitcoin. Oh, I agree with that, especially if that person is highly regarded. We love the highly regarded people. Mocha Master fired up and brewing my morning coffee. Great. All right, guys. There you go. So, pardon me again for the slight delay. I was shocked, I tell you, when I saw the phone this morning when I woke up and it was 7 a.m. The sun still had not risen, but it's up now. So that's why we're good, right? So the sun's up. We're doing great. Sunrise Tech operating. Bitcoin's up and running. So let's have some coffee and talk about what's new. Perfect, perfect. So we do have quite a bit of good news today. But let me start with a bit of Moscow time just to get going, right? We were talking yesterday about the COPE, the COPE people, they're meeting, the COPE 24 or COPE 20, whatever, right? The people who are coping with the global warming stuff, right? So the COPE people have met, and so there they go. And the COPE people, including John Kerry, were, doing their climate change thing. And I don't know if you caught it, but this is a headline from the New York Post. Loud fart sound erupts during John Kerry's speech at climate panel. And so, these guys, they're very worried about the farting. And it's kind of funny that it happened there. We got more. CBS News. All right. So they're blaming Elon Musk's X platform because it fueled far-right riots in Ireland. The experts are here. The experts tell us. So, according to the experts, everything is cool in Ireland, but they had too much access to X. Deadly, deadly. So the COPE people, as I mentioned, the COPE people meeting in Dubai, and Bloomberg here summarizes a bit of the COPE stuff, right? So here's what they say. Humanity is on the verge of 5 climate tipping points, report warns. At current levels of warming, the mass death of warm water coral reefs is likely, and 4 other natural processes are at risk of being irreversibly disrupted. So it's the coral again. The coral, all right? The coral. If the coral isn't perfect, you're all gonna die, guys. The coral, you need the coral, apparently. I don't know anything about coral. Maybe they're right. Who knows? What do I know about coral? This is the headline from the fella in Virginia whose house totally not suspiciously blew up. This guy whose house blew up, right? So this is what they say. Before an explosion leveled James Yu's 2-story duplex, the 56-year-old homeowner had gone through a contentious divorce, had a history of alcohol abuse and filing rambling lawsuits, and had repeatedly complained to the FBI that he was a fraud victim. And then his house blew up, coincidentally. This one's pretty ridiculous. This is from the Washington Post, and they're still going with the hospitals thing in Gaza, right? The hospitals scam. Much of Gaza's population, this is from this morning, much of Gaza's population gathered in schools and hospitals in the south, and the expectation that they would be spared from Israel's ongoing bombardment. The school and the Man neighborhood of Khan Yunis was bombed early Tuesday, right? So they're still surprised about schools and hospitals. Oh, what happened? How many hospitals and schools are there in Gaza? Can't be that many. Well, there you go. Still surprised. So we got one more, and this one's quite funny. So it turns out there's going to be no Washington poop tomorrow. Did you know that? The Washington poop is on strike. So they're not going to, and they're going to punish us. And they are indeed punishing us. There's going to be no Washington poop tomorrow. All the writers and all these people are on strike, which means I don't know how I'm going to do Moscow time without them. I mean, so we got to honor them here. We got to underline what's going on. And it turns out here, the Washington Post Guild letting us all know that they've been in contract negotiations with their bosses for 18 months. Um, and but the company is refusing to pay us what they're worth. That's what the Post Guild said. So they're walking off the job for 24 hours. And Jamie Selway writes, our budget deficit is rivaled by that of self-awareness in the halls of the Washington Post. Pretty good. Very good, very good. So that's what we got for our Moscow time today. Now, today our theme is let's talk about all the good news, right? It's actually unbelievable how much good news there is right now. It's not just that Bitcoin is going up. It's not just that we're back to our beautiful several $1,000 candles, which we love, right? We love the several $1,000 candles. um, People talking about the hospital stuff here. I gotta see what they say. Fiat maxis are in troll despair. They are. Coral is just a big pile of purple worms with shells. That's what I thought. Yeah. Fiat lost 150% of value in the past year. Funny. This is about the hospital. Yeah, don't go to the hospitals, guys. Right? Like 36 hospital and another 20 schools in Gaza. Yeah, and they're still hiding them. What I love is the Washington Post is like, and they thought they would be safe. We've spent 2 months talking about how they're not safe. Don't go there. I don't want to laugh, but it's kind of funny. All right, so it's bad news. You don't want to laugh at stuff like that, but I mean, it's been 2 months. Did they not get the memo? Don't go to the hospitals. So here we go. Yesterday we had the head of the FBI. So he goes in front of Congress yesterday, right? He's getting grilled by the senators and all this kind of stuff. So we found out some amazing stuff, right? He was put on the ropes for a few minutes by based Mike Lee about how they run the warrants and they do all kinds of warrantless stuff, and he kind of smirked, but he obviously was incapable of denying it. But So that was a really good thing. But then Dan Crenshaw comes out and says, of course, the red lights are flashing. The withdrawal from Afghanistan gave terror a base of operations and showed the world we will cut and run. The war Hamas launch has inflamed tensions across the Middle East and the world. Iran and their proxies are threatening global shipping lanes without any repercussions. Our borders are less secure than they've ever been. What happens out there matters here. Oceans are not protective moats that protect us anymore. The chaos is always a short flight away. So blah blah blah. Dan Crenshaw is trying to let you know that the FBI is not so bad, okay, because we're so vulnerable right now. But yesterday, what also came out simultaneous was the actual report on the FBI and its spying on Catholic organizations in America. And so this was published yesterday by the intern staff of the Committee on the Judiciary and the Select Committee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government. The FBI's breach of religious freedom, the weaponization of law enforcement against Catholic Americans. So while Dan Crenshaw is out here crying about what the hell's going on in the world and saying, we need a new headquarters for the FBI. Remember, we've been talking about that simultaneous a few weeks ago when the FBI put out those Washington Poop articles about, oh, you didn't know blackmail is rampant in DC. All these legislators and people at the whorehouses all the time. Whoops. And then the same day they get a $300 million allocation for a new office somewhere in Virginia. Not, I don't think, near where that guy's house blew up, but probably. Right. So he goes in front of Congress yesterday. And of course, the uniparty people, right, still do it, still say, oh, look what's happening. But look at the world we're in today. Look at how much more refreshing it is to see Republicans, the ones who are part of the uniparty, the ones who are probably getting blackmailed, the ones who are probably selling out Americans, the ones who are probably not focused on this FBI thing, spying on Catholics. Those folks are outing themselves at a rate that is really great, right? Now, what a benefit it is for us to not be dealing with as many moles and as many people who would be there to sabotage things and send them astray, right? We've seen in the what's his name again? That guy Saul Alinsky, right? Saul Alinsky stuff that he wrote that Hillary Clinton used to create her PhD was all about stuff like this. It was how to subvert meetings, how to subvert groups, how to ask stupid questions to slow down processes. It was literally stuff like this. So now that these things are happening, and I mean the Dan Crenshaw thing and Republicans and the Uniparty and Uniparty people in the Democrat Party, Uniparty people on the Republican Party. So great news, right? That it's becoming easier and easier to see these people. And Cernovich writes about the Dan Crenshaw thing. Christopher Wray sent FBI agents to spy on Catholics. He loves Hamas. America needs strength at home. Bombing brown people is lucrative but achieves nothing. Real strength would be standing up for January 6ers and defending institutions that selectively prosecute conservatives. But that didn't happen. And that's the good news, right? Because the good news is the following. As things are breaking in different directions now, we're starting to see that the realignment from the political order to a new financial order is becoming more and more obvious, right? The Dan Crenshaws, the Christopher Wrays, all of these people that are outing themselves as cronies and stooges is really great. It can't go backwards now. We cannot reconstitute the old Republican Party, just like the Democrats can't reconstitute the old Democrat Party. So that thing is not going to hold. It's going to keep changing. Liz Cheney ain't going to keep it together. Liz Cheney is not going to be leading a group of Republicans back into the uniparty fold. They're gone forever, right? And I think it's going to be the same all around. We're seeing that happen across all spheres, right? It's not just there. So we get the DOJ thing yesterday. You also had Ted Cruz, who came in front of Chris Wray and just absolutely punched him in the face several times about the Joe Biden stuff, right? The energy money that we saw yesterday. Talking about here, Cruz points to a damning text as direct evidence indicating Joe Biden's direct involvement in extorting millions from CEFC China Energy. The IRS whistleblower testified that when he tried to find out whether Joe was sitting next to Hunter and the DOJ blocked getting the GPS data on Joe Biden's phone, the IRS whistleblower testified that Assistant U.S. Attorney Leslie Wolf explicitly told investigators that despite having such probable cause to search, there's no way a search warrant would be approved. Well, they do the thing without the search warrants all the time. That's what we found out yesterday. Hundreds of times. The FBI has engaged warrantless searches on Americans now, hundreds of times, right? So awesome. The IRS whistleblowers have alleged that the Attorney General lied under oath, which is a felony. Who cares about that stuff? Wray, however, consistently falls back on the excuse of ongoing investigation to avoid answering a single question. The Wall Street Journal reported last month that President Joe Biden received money from Hunter and James's deal with CEFC China Energy. James Biden told FBI agents that he and Hunter were trying to help CEFC China Energy purchased U.S. energy assets while they believed the company's chairman had direct ties to Xi Jinping, the president of China. So they go on about all this stuff. But look, there obviously isn't much doubt anymore about what's going on with the Biden crime family, right? But here's where it gets even better, right? So you get the Bidens and their criminal organization becoming pretty explicit. The FBI as a criminal organization is almost indisputable now. I am comfortable without even delving into the world of libel and all of that stuff to say that the FBI is a criminal organization. I couldn't have said that, I mean, objectively and defensively even a year ago. I could have felt it. I could have believed it. I could actually argue this now against almost anyone with the amount of evidence that we have. And I think I can argue it completely and to the point where any judge would agree with my side, or unless they're totally corrupt, right? So we're at a point now where normal people have access to the amount of information and damning evidence required to convict in your own head the FBI as a 100% irredeemable. There might be good people there. It doesn't matter anymore. It just doesn't matter, right? It doesn't even matter how many good people there are. All that matters, the amount of good people that are left, is how hard it is going to be to destroy later, right? Maybe they'll help us. Who knows? But there you go. But it gets better. The Daily Wire now is joining the Federalist to sue the Biden State Department over censorship. So this goes back into the state of Texas lawsuit, right, against the U.S. State Department. So you've got Missouri versus Joe Biden. You've got this case now, which is the Texas one against the federal government and the State Department. And now you're getting media companies like the Daily Wire. So the Daily Wire opened up its guns against Disney last week. It opened up its guns against um, um, the normal Hollywood production houses with its Lady Ballers movie, right? And now they're opening up the legal field against the US government as well. So they're winning on every level, right? And we think we're going to be able to get Jeremy Boring, who is the mastermind behind a lot of this, at Bitcoin 2024 in Nashville, Tennessee. So they're a Nashville-based organization, so it shouldn't be too hard. We had the actress who's playing Snow White in their Snow White movie last year, but this year we're going to get more of these folks. So you get that. And then it gets even better, guys. It doesn't end there, right? So there was more testimony yesterday on the Hill. It wasn't just the FBI. They also brought the Assistant Attorney General, right? So the Assistant Attorney General comes before the another one of these committees, right? The weaponization of the federal government committee. So the similar thing that's going on with the FBI thing that we saw yesterday, the FBI report on the Catholics, and this weaponization thing that we see with the Daily Wire. But they brought this lady in yesterday, right? I never heard of her before, but it turns out she's the U.S. Assistant Attorney General. So she works right under what's his name, the guy who's suing the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, right? He's on my ass with the Kraken thing. So I don't know how I ended up like Forrest Gump with all of these fucking enemies too, right? I got the Kraken getting sued by the AGN Yellen, right? Yellen is on is out there. Where does she get involved in fucking litigation? So there she is also. But anyway, it's not about them. It's Merrick Garland's Assistant Attorney General. So she goes in front of the committee yesterday, and it's Jim Jordan and all these other people, right? And 6 different federal agencies were found to be guilty of violating the First Amendment of American liberties, First Amendment liberties of Americans. So this is Jim Jordan tweeting. And he says that, and the U.S. Attorney General, so she goes there, right? And they're asking her all about Missouri versus Joe Biden. How many times have I brought up Missouri versus Joe Biden on this show? I mean, almost every day, right? I bring up Missouri versus Joe Biden almost every day. Separate to my Merrick Garland litigation, we've also got the Federal Reserve thing where they went after us for the T-shirts. Remember the T-shirt scandal, right? Your fucking T-shirts. So when the Fed served papers to Bitcoin Magazine a few weeks ago, I made the case. I'm going to continue this case. I think our lawyer might be stupid. I don't know, but he's not picking up on this. And I've asked him a few times to do this, which is the following: to enjoin our case to Missouri versus Joe Biden. I said it from day. I said it on the Spaces the day the thing was announced against us. And so this Missouri versus Joe Biden case is all about the chilling of free speech by government agencies. It has everything to do with what we heard of in the past few days with the Obama stuff, right? It's the emails that we've seen where they say, "Oh, we can't have another 2016 election. That can't happen again." This was the documents that Michael Schellenberger showed the other day, where they called themselves the Hogwarts School of Misinformation, simultaneous to me writing the Bitcoiner's Guide to NPC Management, which is about using spell work to counter what I didn't know this was an absolute coincidence, right? That they came out that the spies and the brainwashers refer to themselves as wizards. And in my book, I said, we're dealing with NPCs who are the byproduct of dark magic. So that happened, right? So the dark magic NPC creation system requires the censorship of Americans, because that's the only way to corral them under these spells. You can't sing them these lullabies if you let other sounds come in, right? If other sounds are penetrating your lullaby cocoon, they're not going to fall asleep. I mean, I know what it's like to put children to bed. It's got to be quiet, right? You can't have exciting sounds all around. And the exciting sounds all around are coming through now. There's no stopping it, right? There's no putting these people to sleep because it's penetrating through all the time. That's why we've been talking about Missouri versus Joe Biden for a long time. Now, I don't, this is where our lawyer gets it wrong. So he's not stupid, but he's a typical lawyer in this way, right? So I keep telling him, let's try to enjoin the case, right? But he's like, but that won't work. And I'm like, but I know it won't work. I'm not trying to make it work. The only defense the Federal Reserve has against us trying to enjoin the case is for them to say, no, 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 no. We're not a Federal Reserve. We're a banking cartel. We're allowed to censor Americans. I want them to defend themselves. The defense is what I want. I don't want to be successful in joining the Joe Biden, Missouri versus Joe Biden case. I don't care. That's boring, right? Maybe the law, and then you're an amicus in the court. Fine, that would be fun. We would get attention for that. I'm okay with that. But more deliciously, I want the dumb Federal Reserve to get them out there and say, no, 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 guys, no, 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 we're not federal. We're a banking cartel. We're allowed to censor. So that would be great, right? I want them to come out and just say who they are. This is what we found out, though. So they bring this assistant attorney general, right? She's there answering questions. This dumb bitch doesn't even know what Missouri versus Joe Biden is. She said, I'm not aware of the litigation. So this is what Jim Jordan says. 6 different federal agencies were found to be guilty of violating the First Amendment liberties of Americans. And the U.S. Attorney General for the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice, Kristen Clark, is not aware of the She's not aware. And I believe her. She looked as clueless and honestly clueless as I can imagine. She looks like one of these volunteer people who didn't know that they're the baddies. Maybe we're the baddies. She doesn't know. She's completely unaware, which is great. It's great. You can't get better than that, right? You can't get better as a Bitcoiner. You can't get better than, oh, I didn't know Americans were civil rights were being trampled upon, and you're the person in charge of it. It's perfect. It's perfect, guys. It couldn't be better. So we get that one. We get, I got more good news here. Let me make sure it's in order. Oh yeah, Jack Smith. So this one's good too. So yesterday, Jack Smith, that's the, if you don't remember which Jack Smith is, that's the Georgia case about the elections and the other electoral college people, Trump, something, steal the election, blah, blah, blah. So now what he says is that if Trump criticizes, because remember they got something about, like, Trump got a gag order, like Jack Smith was the steely-eyed, handsome triathlete. The Washington Post described him. Not tomorrow, because they're going to be on strike. So the Washington Post described him that way, and they and so they put the gag order on him. Now they want to jail him. All right, now they want to jail Trump. Jack Smith does, for criticizing the Biden Justice Department, right? So they actually put it into the courts, right? The court filing seeking to jail Trump for his criticism of the Biden Justice Department's politicized prosecutions of January 6th protesters. Again, this is one of those things that's dumb enough to hurt them. And we love it. We're here for it. We're here for it. Let me see. All right, now I'll get some more of the good news. Just making sure I got all the political stuff out of the way here. Things were not exactly put in the correct order. Okay, good. We're doing good. We're doing good. All right. Now, oh yeah, let's go back to Disney for a second. I got one more on Disney. So what I'm describing here is the inability so far of the censorship industrial complex and the brainwashing industrial complex and the military industrial complex, all the same complex, right? So I mean, the censorship industrial complex, I don't think really qualifies what's going on. So I know Michael Schellenberger, who might be a speaker at Bitcoin 2024. I know a few of these people like to call it the censorship industrial complex. I prefer the brainwashing industrial complex because censorship just means like you stop people from seeing stuff. They do more than that, right? It's not just like, oh, they block people from seeing stuff. They actively brainwash. So there's it's not censorship seems almost passive compared to what they're actually doing with the wizards and the this and the that. So it's important. So now, when I describe the typical censorship industrial complex, right? We mentioned yesterday that Brian Stelter, for example, as one of these like Mockingbird book things. We were talking about Mark Dice and the book thing. He only sold 3,000 or something copies, right? So that thing's falling apart. Mark Dice sold way more copies, and way more people than ever know what Operation Mockingbird is, and all of those things. So that's a good news. Now we've talked a lot about Disney's incapacity to gather an audience, make a good show, make money. Of course, we saw what happened last week when Elon Musk told the guy to go fuck himself, and now everybody's been canceling their Disney, so that thing's falling apart. So the ability of Disney to join with the brainwashers is becoming more and more limited, and their range is becoming more and more limited. Well, it's going to get even worse. So we found out yesterday or 2 days ago that there's massive corruption inside of Disney as well. What's the corruption? Well, remember how they've been like a private city, and then DeSantis got into a fight with them, and this and that. Well, it turns out for years that they've been bribing all kinds of local officials with tickets, seasons passes, thousands. Now, it doesn't sound like a lot, like a ticket to Disney, but these were transferable. I don't know if I received a gift of Disney passes recently when I was there in 2021, coming home from Bitcoin 2021. And, a Bitcoin guy that I know, great guy, all of you know him. If you're Bitcoiners, you would all love him. He has a house on the Disney resort, and with the house, you get, so many tickets because, I mean, the house costs a lot of money. So he paid for them, right? So, but you get these free tickets, and you can tell. I mean, I think it was a $2,000 gift for one day, right? For my family to go for one day. I received a few gifts from a few people. So we were able to go, for many days, and I didn't have to pay, which was great. But for the people that do have to pay, it's crazy. Like, it's one of the most expensive places you can go. And they were peddling these tickets, and I mean, millions of dollars worth, enough for it to be actual corruption. $20,000 packages, discounts, huge discounts on their cruises, and on this other stuff. So, this is what Tyler O'Neill says: Disney effectively controlled local government through bribes, including Disney World passes not available to the public. The employees of this, it's called the Reedy Creek Improvement District. And so these guys got in trouble. They had it all made. It's that when they got involved in the kids sex books in school and all, they got all involved in this, right? They're like, no, we need it's not, we're not into book banning, right? We're not into book banning. So they're not into book banning, but they were into corruption and into bribery, and so this is going to come back and haunt them, right? The ill will that Americans have towards them now is so great. One second, I gotta get Kleenex. The ill will that Americans have towards these people has become so great. Just a second. I don't know where it is. Anyway, all right. So now we can get into more of the good news, right? There's that, and then these are all the things that are breaking, right? These are all the things that are breaking. Now, that's not. Let's talk about all the goods. What kind of a stupid title is that? I meant to put good news. Okay. Our theme is let's talk about all the good news and why number go up. I don't know why I wrote it so poorly. I'll have to go in and change that. But corals are just important like salt, threads this needle. I'm sure they are. I'm sure the coral is fine and important, but I saw requesting reparations from Pakistan to support coral reefs, which is stupid carbonism. Yeah. And catastrophism. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying corals aren't important, but are they really shrinking the way they say? I don't know. Like, I live in the Caribbean. I don't. I'm annoyed by the coral, frankly. I'm surrounded by coral. Like, maybe there's some problem, but I haven't seen it. So, I don't know shit about coral. Don't come to me for coral expertise. I don't know. I think it's just funny. The coral, right? We can't stop it. The world's gonna give me all your money. Redo all your systems. Coral, right? That was their number one reason. Of the other five, they were all stupid. And of course, it's the oh yeah, the Atlantic current is going to die, right? It's going to be no more warm water from the Caribbean heading up to the polar Arctic. Stupid. Yeah, yeah, that's what I thought. Like my impression is it's like one of these ozone things. Like, oh, oh, whoops, it's actually not a problem. We grew up with the ozone scam. So, all right. So here's the other good news. That was all the things that are breaking, the impediments to Bitcoin, the brainwashers, the fiat industrial brainwashers that allow the dollar to perpetuate for generations. Those things are losing power, right? And that's what all this was about. The federal government's loss of power, loss of credibility. Remember again, right? What I believe the captive hostage Jerome Powell, right? The captive hostage. I think of Jerome Powell as a hostage. When I think of Jerome Powell, the Jerome Powell, the chair of the Federal Reserve. Now he's a lawyer, right? Remember what I've laughed about this. You remember Greg Foss's thing? He shouldn't be in the risk chair. He shouldn't be in the risk chair. He's a lawyer. Why is lawyers running in the Federal Reserve, right? Well, in this time and place, I'm really happy that we got a lawyer there, because he said this at the start of the summer, and I continue to believe this is like someone blinking and like giving you signals. And he's there as the chair of the Federal Reserve, and they're asking about BRICS, right? This is the beginning of the summer. They're asking him all about BRICS. What are you going to do? Everyone says no more US dollar. They don't want it. What are you going to do? Is it still going to be the global reserve currency? And his answer, I'll continue to believe this is how a hostage speaks. I could be wrong, but he says, well, you know, as long as America remains rules based with the rule of law, there's no stopping the US dollar. This is simultaneous to us knowing about Hunter Biden, about everything that's going on with the election, with everything that's going on with our courts, with Missouri versus Joe Biden. Do you think that Jerome Powell is just unaware of all of this? Is he just sitting there saying, oh, you mean we're not a democracy? you mean you mean America's corrupt as shit? You think he's saying that? Maybe. I mean, he gave the only answer that I would accept, right? It's true. He is 100% correct. Fiat was a real invention. It was a real thing, and it worked better than anything's ever worked for a little while. And then the fucking shitty stuff set in, and now we have to deal with it, right? Like all systems, entropy set into the system and poisoned it to such an extent that you have these results. Now, the only way to actually articulate that, if you're the head of it, is to say what he said. As long as, as long as we don't experience entropy, we'll be fine, right? We've had 80 years of it. The system is fucked. It can't be fixed. So when he comes out and says that, I think you've got, what I described as the hostage thing. Now, while that's going on, all these rumors about, you have all these rumors about Qatar, right? So Qatar, the leader of Qatar apparently goes to El Salvador, meets with Bukele, and everyone, Max Kaiser sets everyone off yesterday by saying they're looking to buy a $500 billion allocation of Bitcoin. So it would be the largest allocation of Bitcoin ever. There isn't even enough Bitcoin on exchanges to make this deal. You're going to have to go to some of the more established OTC branches. I've never obviously put together or seen anyone put together a deal this size. So I don't even know where. I think you have to go to a few of the OTC desks. So you'd have to go probably to the folks in Chicago. You'd have to go to New York. You'd have to really try to get this together. So is it true? I don't know. But this is what happens when you read through the lines about what Jerome Powell said the other day, right? Jerome Powell said this about people like Qatar. That's what he meant. If America isn't credible for people like the Sultan, I guess, I don't know what his title is, the Qatar guy, then the whole thing doesn't work. So here's what we say. Here's what we're saying. This is from Luke Broyles. He's saying, rumor going around that Qatar's sovereign wealth fund wants to have $500 billion or $500 billion allocation of Bitcoin. Context: this is 671x more than Saylor's Bitcoin position. Problem: there's only 76 billion worth of Bitcoin remaining on exchanges. Many people seem to not understand this and say, wait, how will they buy if there aren't more coins? That's the whole point. With immovable supply, the only thing that can happen is price moves. My guess is that the rumor is just that, a rumor, and I would say that too. Right? Until it has happened, this is pure speculation. In all likelihood, it would not be 500 billion, and it would be over many years, and it would not be instant liquidity if it happens at all. However, these things will eventually occur. Why? And he says the U.S. adds exactly that much of money of unfunded liabilities every 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks, the fiat industrial complex adds exactly what we're talking about, $500 billion. Now, again, we're dealing with people who don't want to sit next to them while they blow up the world, right? Why should anyone incur the kind of obligations and responsibilities that the corrupt US system is creating for itself? Why would anyone be involved in that? And I think that's where it's headed, right? So the that's part of the good news, right? Um, That's part of it. We get more. We're not done. We got more. We got more good news. Oh yeah, this is just something that Eric Voorhees pointed out, which is funny on this day because it it kind of had some poetic justice. We saw, of course, of the day that what's his name, Warren Buffett's partner, the Charlie Munger. He's got the Munger disease, right? He's dead, so he died. He had the Munger virus, which I said is being so close to seeing something but not being able to see it, right? So that's what he was always saying about the Federal Reserve a year ago. He was complaining last year about things like a $500 billion of unfunded liabilities being added to the balance sheet every week, right? He was saying, they can't keep printing money. We need a good system, right? And then he insults Bitcoin. So I call it the Munger virus at the time, which is when you're just so close, right, that you munger for the answer. His friend, partner, Warren Buffett, of course, famous for the rat poison squared interview. I'm not sure if any of the fake news ever kept them on the news, but when that quote first came, the rat poison squared, they asked me to go. I did all the networks that day. Like I did probably CNBC and CNN and all of them, right? Because that's when they love to bring me in to do the fake news in the old days when I lived in New York City. So if you didn't know, in the old days in New York City, I would go, they would send in the black car, and I would go onto the studio set, blah, Bitcoin price up, Bitcoin price down, hack, right? It was the same shit every day. But this one was a lot of fun. My character when I would be on these shows was to be a little irreverent, right? I wasn't exactly playing. I wasn't like, oh, thanks for inviting me, right? I knew it was entertainment and they wanted to put on a show, so I'd always try and be the irreverent Bitcoiner and to not, sort of suck their ass when I'm up there, being so happy to be invited to television. And in fact, I quit doing the mainstream television when they asked me on for at the end of my time in New York. It was the Black Lives Matter time, the George Floyd, Saint George Floyd stuff. So I was like, why are they inviting me? Remember, there was a little thing where it was like, Bitcoin's not doing enough. Remember all that? So they invited me on, and I was like, why are you inviting me? Right? I've had enough of being in unwinnable situations with the mainstream media. So you can call someone else. I'm not doing it because it was a scam. Right? Obviously, it was a scam. They were just going to call me a racist, and then it would have been the dumbest TV you've ever seen, and I didn't want to be a part of that. So the great news is, and people laughing about this, well, yeah, so that's what I did. I was one of the first people to ever deliver that line, right? When they said the rat poison squared. So I went on the fake news and they would say, Warren Buffett called Bitcoin rat poison squared. And I said, well, he's right. And then you let it hang, right? Everyone's seen this joke, but I was the first. I copied it online. I forget from who, probably Matt Odell or someone was writing about it, right? But I saw it right away because that, you go on Twitter, you get your talking points, and I went on the television knowing what I was going to say and what they were going to ask me about. So I just agreed and let it hang there. If someone could find the clip, it's pretty funny, right? I think they cut it because it made them look bad. So I said, yeah, it's true. Right? Then you let it hang, and they're like, go fuck yourself. Remember when Andrew Ross saw it? That was probably the guy interviewing me, right? That same guy that was interviewing Elon the other day. So that guy's interviewed me about Bitcoin many, many times. And so, I gave him the line, right? Yeah, it is. And they're like, what? Well, of course, for the banks. Yeah, it's going to kill the banks. Yeah, they're done. They're finished, right? A dollar, it's poison, rat poison to the old system, 100%. And then they laughed. Ah, ha, 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 ha. But they don't like looking stupid like that, right? They wanted me to like beg, oh, the fundamentals say that Bitcoin is not rat poison, right? I know more than Warren Buffett, right? They were going with that. Stupid. But here's the good news. Here's the good news, right? Market cap, the blah, blah, blah number went up so much that Bitcoin's market cap now flipped. It's one of the top 10 market caps in the world, and it flipped Berkshire Hathaway the other day. It flipped their company. So unfortunately, Charlie Munger did not monger long enough to see what happened. But Eric Voorhees writes, rat poison squared, now worth more than Berkshire Hathaway. That's kind of perfect, right? It's kind of perfect for today, for number going up, that you get that. I just wish Charlie Munger would have lived long enough to see the day where his firm's position became true, right? It's absolutely true. It's killing the banks. So we love it. We're not done with good news. There's more good news. Here is a prediction I made. And again, this is going to be a big one for Bitcoiners. And it's Elon Musk yesterday saying that Tesla is far advanced in the development of their next gen low cost vehicle, and that he reviews the production plans for that every week. So what he says is the revolution in manufacture that will be presented by the car will blow people's mind. Now, I'm willing to bet this looks a lot like that Toyota truck we talked about a couple weeks ago, the stripped down $10,000 truck, but the opposite, in the sense that instead of the Toyota, which is zero microchips, zero electric, very cheap platform, right? It is their truck, right? It's the Hilux, Tacoma, whatever you call it in America, truck, but just with zero, not even cup holders, right? Nothing, zero, just the most basic shell. So I predicted a long time ago that the car industry was going to change so drastically to be a little bit like the delivery e-bike cars, really inexpensive, because the amount of parts required to make an electric vehicle is far fewer than a combustion engine, right? Coolants and oils, none of that stuff. So I've said for a long time, and I've been predicting for a long time, we'd have something like the Nakamoto Trail, right, which is a separate thing about voluntarism and how do we build infrastructure at the scale of the Eisenhower network. I think we're going to do that in the next era. I think we're going to show the political order of engineering and building physical things. We have to show that to the world, that our system can actually build physical things. Because again, it's always that, what are you going to do about the roads, right? That stupid thing. Oh, you're a anarchist. Who going to make the roads, right? Just the dumbest shit. Oh, by the way, did you notice that? And this was what people were complaining about yesterday. You had Thomas Massey, who we're going to talk about, right? Thomas Massey talking about the money that we've given to Ukraine so far is more than all federal spending on roads and bridges in the country. We could have doubled. This isn't the first time, right? How many people have said over the years, what if we built trains with all the money we sent to Iraq 20 years ago? We would have trains, right? Speaking of which, this is, it's just a day of amazing news. The future is here, guys. The Bitcoin era is here. The high-speed rail between Vegas and LA announced yesterday, and looks like they're going to be building it. Let me see if I got the actual quote. I think I do. It was in my good news for the day. Anyway, we got the cars, we got the cars, we got the the cheap cars, and I guess Elon also is out raising money for Grok right now. I think he's going to get $1 billion allocated for Grok, the AI. Grok AI, I think, going to go far more deeply into the model that I've been suggesting, your personal AI that you will train yourself, that will be your friend, that will be your confidant, that will look out for you, that will manage your Bitcoin, right? So Not the other model of corporate AI, which tells you woke shit, stupid shit, and brainwashes you and participates with the hallucinatory system. So that I think that is good news. We're going to win that fight as well. So we get that. And did you see, just to show the fun things that are happening in AI, did you see that Jimmy Stewart, right? You know, the actor Jimmy Stewart, Jimmy Stewart being the A Wonderful Life. By the way, in A Wonderful Life, it's a pretty interesting story. The famous movie about money and all kinds of Christmas stuff in America, probably the most famous Christmas movie in America. Um, he almost goes and does a Canadian healthcare thing because he lost the money for his family, and it doesn't work out. Apparently he was still, because he was an actual pilot in World War II, and he didn't just do the fair weather tours. He went and fought, and apparently had terrible PTSD. And apparently the character you see in It's a Wonderful Life is him actually processing his um, PTSD from fighting in the war. He lost a bunch of friends in the skies. If you can think of a scarier thing, right, than being up in the sky with those bombers in World War II, and the anti-aircraft stuff is just popping off planes. And apparently his visions, what he saw, were just his friends falling out of the sky, like, because the plane breaks, and so you're just I mean, unbelievable, right? Who could get over that? So apparently the character, from It's a Wonderful Life, was really him manifesting his own um, recovery. But now, his family, right, has allowed for his voice to be pre-programmed, to program into the Calm app, and it tells bedtime stories to you. So in Jimmy Stewart's beautiful voice, you're now going to get to listen to bedtime stories. So he's back. Jimmy Stewart back, right? Just in time for Christmas. It's amazing, right? I'm a big Jimmy Stewart fan, so this is good news for me. So AI, a lot of fun stuff happening. Uh, Now, go back to the Thomas Massey about the bridges. So Thomas Massey, this is another one of these good news things, right? Thomas Massey, probably the highest IQ congressman there, probably the only congressman worth a damn in the whole thing, right? There's not many like him. And Thomas Massey uh, goes on Tucker Carlson yesterday, and they talk about the oligarchs and Victoria Nuland and the money, and because he keeps voting against it, and why are we giving any money to Ukraine at all? This is a tragedy. We got to get out of there. But he also got to plug his Prime Act, right? So for Jevi in the crowd, the Prime Act, of course, probably, all the crazy shit going on in America, all the crazy, stupid stuff you hear about, right? Almost the most transformational thing is Thomas Massey's little Prime Act here. And what's the Prime Act? The Prime Act would denude the federal agricultural inspectors from any relationship and role in between a farmer and a consumer. So they're being removed. The federal government is being removed, and the grocery stores, because it incentivizes being around the grocery stores. Now, it sounds stupid, but I'm going to tell you this, and I believe this, that the grocery store corruption is as bad as the banking cartel corruption in America. The food supply is tainted, right? We have a tainted food supply. Americans are the least healthy people on earth because they're victims of this system. It's as bad as the money. The food problem in America is as bad as the US dollar. And luckily Satoshi has fixed that too. It's a P2P market, a way out of the food tainted problem that we're in is to get rid of the federal government. It couldn't be more simple, right? So I already live with the system. In Vermont, that's what we have. In Vermont, a farmer can sell direct, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I have no federal inspection stickers on my steak. I have no federal inspection stickers on my eggs. I have no federal inspection stickers on anything I buy from my farmers. I get nice raw milk. I get non-homogenized raw milk. Some of them do light. One that I get does light pasteurization, which means they don't raise the temperature above like 70 Celsius or something. It's just like a mellow, not so hot. They don't boil it or anything like that. And they do not filter it to homogenize it or anything like that. It's just straight milk, right? I can get the straight raw, which I get in Barbados and a few other places, but it's a little inconvenient for me to get the perfectly raw, straight out of the cow stuff in Vermont. Well, it's not. It's like an extra 10-mile drive. I have a very convenient stand near me, right on a farm, so I get milk from there. And the Prime Act would see the system that I use in Vermont sent throughout the country, where any farmer could sell their wares directly to consumers without any inspection. The only inspection is when you go to the farm. If it's a filth hole, don't buy the food. Don't do that. Now, I mean, most of the ones where I live in Vermont are awesome. I've never found one I wouldn't want to eat at. But there's one that sells milk, and I find, it stinks a little around it. They have too many cows, I would say. I don't go there, right? And they have commercial deals. They sell to the big commercial things, which you can go and buy directly from them, but they're annoyed by it. It's not their market or anything like that. They do the Organic Valley milk. They have a big distribution deal, so it's fine. It's a huge, gorgeous farm. But I don't like the smell too much of the sour, because there's so many cows in the barns. They shed a bit of it just stinks, right? I like the ones that just pasture, right? Just pure pasture, hardly any farm. The herd that I get my steaks from is only about 20 deep all the time, and they slaughter one at a time right on the farm. And that's where I get my steaks from. I know every individual cow that I get the steak from, right? The farmer to us was a big, little but healthy and that kind of stuff. So there you go. Great news, right? Great news. Primac. So imagine, and the only reason I bring it up is because just look at the piggybacking here, right? Thomas Massey was just a no-name backbencher a little while ago, but the world has changed so much that he's become the voice of reason on Ukraine, Hamas, Israel. His profile as an individual congressman through the roof, through the roof. And his own, this is like what we call in Canada, private members bill. So a bill that comes from just a legislator, not from an executive branch, not from any of this stuff. These are rare to get any traction, and like one per Congress you get, right? It's very rare. One per Congress is about what gets through and made law, that gets to the president and becomes law. Now I don't know. I don't think he's going to get it this time, but that act getting more and more profile is perfect news. I mean, it's just perfect because it's this big of a problem. The food problem in America, I'm not kidding, is as bad as the banking cartel. It's that bad. It's one of the most insidious, destructive things going on in America. The seed oils and the terrible tainted whatever that stuff that RFK is going on about all the time in glyphosate, right? With the wheat, right? They spray the glyphosate again, the Roundup at the end to keep the wheat from going moldy, right? Because you lose. There's a trick of harvesting the wheat at the end of the harvest, which is you can't get it when it's wet and damp because it will mold in storage. So it's got to be dried directly out in the sun. And then when you harvest it, it won't go moldy. It'll be nice dry. You can mill it, turn it into flour. What they found was if you spray the glyphosate on it, that it will dry naturally and can never mold because it's antifungal, right? The glyphosate is that, it's antifungal. So the problem is, and according to RFK and many others, the celiac disease that Americans started observing, 2005 on, comes from this innovation, right? It comes from the glyphosate being that this magic trick that it's used for harvesting, because they only put the glyphosate in at the beginning before, which is fine, right? You put some antifungal and herbicide, and hopefully the things grow, but over the summer it would get processed out, right? Metabolically processed out, so you weren't consuming it. But if they put it on at the end the way they did with crop dusting and other things, then it wouldn't work that way. Now the thing in Vermont is we can't really do the glyphosate at the end because we don't do crop dusting, because it's all valleys. It's not an irregular shaped farms, right? It's one of the neat things that happened to Vermont and Quebec, the two places I live in, is that the farming was never industrializable, right? They couldn't do it. It's not like it is in the Midwest where it's flat. You can do the round farming, circular farming. You can take over huge swaths of land in order to farm. Ours in the Northeast, especially in Vermont, were never really commercially viable, the farms. So there's a lot that disappeared. Vermont is way more forested than it was when I was a kid, even, and then before that, from the 50s, and then before that, 100 years ago, there was more people in Vermont and more farms than there are now, right? Because all of them were too small, they were hard to put together. But I think you're going to see regeneration now of this system, and because we're the only small farms left, that's it in the whole country. I mean, there's a few in the south and all that, but I mean at scale, like we have no big farms. So I think everyone's going to be able to benefit from this system going forward, and it's great. Right? So there's more good news. We're not done. We're not done. You get all kinds of nuclear news yesterday as well, right? So China's first next gen reactor began commercial operations. This is the first Gen 4, I think, reactor. So that's happening. Then at the same time, Russia, right, is happy about a US-led initiative. This is yesterday as well, to triple global nuclear power capacity in a rare instance of agreement as nations seek to reach net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. So America, Russia, and China all agreeing we got to go nuclear. Is there a better news in the world today than that? Is there a better piece of news in the world today than that? Think about what this does, right? This takes away the petrodollar supremacy. This opens up the door for new energy finance. Bitcoiners are going to dominate nuclear finance. You're going to see a lot of that at Bitcoin 2024. We've even got someone mentioning yesterday that they're outside of I think Crypto Joe, a regular here on the Breakup, was outside of a reactor this morning saying, or had a picture from outside of a reactor saying exactly that we're going to be pumping the Bitcoin out of this stuff. So that's good, right? And I got two more good news stories before we're done. These are both excellent. So I got three more. I got three more. Full marks on brainwashing and persuasion to Kim Jong-un. Kim Jong-un, the North Korean guy. So what did he do? What did Kim Jong-un do yesterday? He goes on live television in North Korea and started to cry. Kim Jong-un yesterday went on North Korean television and cried. What did he ask for? He begged North Koreans to have more babies. Kim Jong-un is going after the demographic problem in his country. Now he's got starvation, he's got a million problems, right? But isn't this awesome? Right? So and if you watch it, right, everyone else starts crying. He has an audience filled with women. They're all crying, right? We need more kids. So the incident happened at the National Mothers Meeting hosted by the dictator, who started dabbing his eyes in an effort to get his people to start popping out more babies. Preventing a decline in birth rates and good childcare are all of our housekeeping duties we need to handle while working with mothers, right? So, I mean, really top level persuasion by our friend Kim Jong-un. He's a terrible dictator, but he nailed it. Right? That's what they need. And we got to start talking about this more. Because look at America. Like, you know, I'm here with my family, my kids, but our cousins are nearby. Very rich Toronto family. But think about their life, right? Car rides, this activity, that activity. I can't believe it. And they're kids from 6 in the morning to 9:30 at night. It's homework and this and that, blah, blah, blah. And you know, the drivers, and they have extra drivers and all that just to get everyone around. In the end, they spend years of their family life in cars, going from A to B. Years worth of time, right? And that's a best case scenario. That's the best case scenario. And it's shit. It's complete. I couldn't live like that, not for a minute. I couldn't have my kids live like that. I couldn't do any of that, right? Now I get it. They're living the same life as everyone. Not everyone has figured this out yet. And indeed, the cost, the reason why we are even in this situation with the demographic problems is because of everything that I just described, the cost of having kids. Now they can afford it. It's fine, right? They're doing the best you can do in the world we live in. And it's not good enough, right? We've got a lot of problems with that. And by focusing on having more kids, figuring out exactly how to do it in a way that's good for families and good for the kids, but really ultimately it's all about bringing the cost down, right? That's why people don't have more kids. It's fucking expensive. That's why it's happening in North Korea. It's happening in North Korea because they can't feed them, right? If Kim Jong Un actually wants to do this, and I think he does, he's got to get the rice flowing, right? He's got to get more kimchi into their mouths, right? He's got to get all that. And they don't eat like they do in South Korea, the tenjang jigaes and all the beautiful food they have in South Korea. They don't have as much of it in North Korea, obviously. So that'll help, right? That'll help get the birth rates that way. So we got nuclear, we got birth rates, we got new cars, we got cheap cars, we got AI. I got two more good news things, and they are excellent. So this comes from Bitcoiner Patrick Byrne. If you guys don't know who Patrick Byrne is, he is the original Michael Saylor. Patrick Byrne is the first person in the world to have a company worth a damn. It was Overstock. And in 2015, he put his balance sheet in Bitcoin. So he was a huge celebrity in the early Bitcoin days. And I booked him for Bitcoin 10-year retrospection in 2019 with Adam Back. They closed out my show, Consensus, for CoinDesk that year. And it was Bitcoin at 10, that's what we called it, and reflections and blah, blah, blah. And it was these two folks, and they did a great job. But within a year, we found out that Patrick Byrne was a agent, that he'd been blackmailed into working for the federal government to spy on Donald Trump. So I didn't know any of this stuff before. So Patrick Byrne, in some kind of brush with responsibility or civic engagement or something, has made it his goal to support President Trump after having, I guess, backstabbed him or worked against him because he was blackmailed into it. So this was all in 2019. In 2020, he became one of the most one of the most publicly outspoken people about the corruption of our elections. And he, from there, ended up making a big Rumble show about, or a local show about election corruption. Now, he lacks some credibility. Okay, he gets things wrong. So I'm not here to tell you. I know Patrick Byrne, and I felt deceived that he was a fucking government agent back then, right? So some credibility problems, right? Not a perfect vessel, not a perfect specimen, but we're not in the realm of perfect vessels and perfect specimens. So he, through guilt or whatever, has sort of dedicated his life now to righting the wrongs of our election system and exposing how much deep state influence there actually is and how bad this blackmail thing is. So I haven't spoken to him since 2019, so I don't know what's going on, right? I've been consuming the content and paying attention to him. But here's what he tweeted yesterday. This is the good news stuff. And remember what I said about Bitcoiners and our role in the election thing. We're the keystone for this election stuff because of the way we talk about it, because of how we understand it, because of the engineering aspects to elections, the credibility aspects to elections, the trade-offs that go into election systems. We understand that as Bitcoiners, right? But having some tangible evidence can help too. And so here's what Patrick Byrne says, right? Just letting the nation know that somewhere in the country, I won't say which state or official, but somebody key has just flipped on superiors and is spilling their guts. Lesson for all election miscreants. Roll early, roll often. Fun. What did I say was going to happen in 2024? We're not even in 2024 yet. It's the best. It's going to be more and more of this shit. And then you get Bill Ackman, of course. This is the last piece of good news, right? So we've got energy, we've got AI, we've got a legal system that doesn't look credible in America, that everyone's laughing at. The brainwashers' power is down. We got the new cheap cars. We've got the nuclear energy. We've got maybe election revelations, which would be a lot of fun. But finally, we have Bill Ackman saying, and this was all another thing that happened yesterday, right? A lot happened in Congress yesterday. Yesterday, you had the the presidents of the universities, right? Or 2 days ago, the presidents of the universities, Harvard, Penn, MIT, right? Just a gang of the least credible, most damaged brands you can find. And they couldn't even explain, and I mean, just the most basic inability to have a conversation about Israel. I mean, just that's what I saw, right? They were incapable of having a normal conversation with people interrogating them in Congress 2 days ago. They had to qualify everything. It was just talking to people with actual observable brain damage. And these are the heads of universities, observable brain damage, incapable of giving an answer to simple questions, just too much shit going on in their brains, too much damage, can't answer. So Bill Ackman, he wrote a big thing about what failures they are and how awful it is. And you had Elise Stefaniak, who was the New York State congressman, just one county over from me, saying they should resign. They're so stupid. They have no argument to even keep their jobs. Bill Ackman writes the following. Bill Ackman says, the world will be able to judge the relative quality of the governance of Harvard, Penn, and MIT by the comparative speed by which their boards fire their respective presidents. That's how bad it was, right? So the brainwashing industrial complex, the universities in free fall, Disney in free fall, the election system falling apart, and Bitcoin pumping. It couldn't be better than this. All right, let me see some quotes here and then comments. I soon hope to live in the Caribbean. I'd love to snorkel. It looks like your prediction of hybrid being sooner than most think is coming to fruition. It is indeed, guys. You will see. You will see. My point is, like, when we talk about improving nature without getting caught up in climate. Yeah, Capenta. I 100% believe in that. I'm an RFK type of. I'm an environmentalist. Honestly, I hate pollution. Hate it. Right? I don't want dirty lakes. I fucking can't stand when I go to dirty places and there's a dirty lake. If I see a dirty lake in Quebec, I lose it. Right? There's no excuse. What are we doing? Right? If I see something dirty in Vermont, the good news is it's not possible. You just don't see it, right? That, like, people clean up after themselves, and we're very conscious of pollution and all this kind of stuff. I mean, as a kid, when I grew up, you couldn't swim in the St. Lawrence River, and that, I mean, it's fine now, but that irritated me that it was too polluted to swim in, and it was this huge, gorgeous body of water surrounding me, and it was not swimmable. But now it is, so that's good. But yeah, Capetta. But this is the thing, right? That was the magic trick about environmentalism. It was focus on the thing that you can't do anything about, that doesn't make any difference, particles in the fucking air, and ignore the real stuff, right? So RFK has been great about that. Oh yeah, I saw everyone talking about the RFK thing with the Epstein, right? Well, the way to think about that is this: there were girls on his planes too, right? What were they doing? Were all of them all the time into the whoring? Like, were there girls? Are there women out there who he was selling underage boys to? I don't think so, right? So there is a group of people that he hung out with that didn't know, right? Um, and so, the reason I bring that up is because people say Cheryl Hines, his wife, how was she connected to Mac Ghislaine? Well, I mean, these people roll in those communities, and it's like, I've seen that. Hey, we're taking our helicopter to the next city. You want to come? Right? Sure. Yeah, sure. Why not? Right? I mean, I remember I was in Singapore once, and a bunch of Bitcoiners and rich Bitcoiners and all that. And I remember saying to one of them, because I was flying commercial through Tokyo, and I had to spend the night, and I really wanted to get it because I was coming right back to Tokyo in 2 weeks. And so I say to this guy, who I know has a private jet, right? I'm like, hey, you going back to New York today? Yeah, you need a ride. I'd have taken it. Now, I don't, he's not a criminal or anything, but I wouldn't have known, right? In the end, I didn't because he had to go to London first, and I didn't want to go like that. I didn't want to go around the world. The point was to get home quicker, and he wasn't going to be quicker. So I asked him, hey, you flying back to New York? Well, you need a ride. I would have taken it, and if he was a criminal, he's not, but I didn't know that, right? I only knew him from like events, right? I just knew he had a private jet, and I wanted to get back to New York right away. And I thought I would try. Hey, he'd have taken me, but again, I didn't want to go to London first. I was trying to get straight, right? And not spend the night. So there you go. Very easy to sell people on their private jet. Let me just tell you that, right? Like a lot of people will ignore bad shit to go on a private jet. So there you go. The amount of hard swallows from Jay Powell is concerning. In the case of Qatar, Biden will outlaw Bitcoin for funding oil dictatorships. Yikes, Felipe. I don't like the sound of that. It is. Yeah, you you can see that. You can see it there. It's on like fake news. I actually did that on fake news. Daniel, a lot of choices. Jevy with the shout out. Well, he's got a great. Yeah, 100% true. It's a shopping at my local market for non-seed oil, minimal processed or ingredients that should be in thick textbooks is a needle and hay. Yeah, no, it's terrible, Muslim Bitcoiner. Even in, it's better where I am in Quebec because we still use a ton of lard. So if you still buy like dough in Quebec, it's made of lard, like pie dough. It's like not even close to the quality that you get in shit American grocery stores. So that's easy to find. I am also lucky that I come from a village that's a huge duck farm. So I can get duck fat like cheap and, big tubs of it all the time. And my whole life, I've always been able to get that. So that's been good news. But indeed, I choose Vermont and Quebec for the groceries. That's what I like. That I can arbitrage like the best groceries in the world, in the world, all the time, and for pretty good prices, and secure supply chain. So that's the other thing. When everything was going wacky during COVID, that's why I wanted to be there, because I had two supply chains from Boston and from the St. Lawrence River. That I figured two supply chains will keep me not dying. So that's how I was thinking about it. Read the new book, Fiat Food. If I eat beans, so that's what I like to think of the what's his name, all those people at the Dubai thing, John Kerry. I met John Kerry once, by the way. Real asshole, like a real asshole. Like just that the only vibe you get is a prick. Met him in New York, and so I have this, I'm imagining like a dad joke. If you're the one cooking for these people in Dubai and you're like, fucking global warming people are here ranting about farts. Well, I got an idea for them. So I just have this, I don't know if it's true. The fart, by the way, looks totally like, have you seen, it looks fake. It looks so real in the sense that he farts, right? And then loses his train of thought. And then the woman next to him puts her finger over her nose. I'm telling you. And then he's like trying, and then he's got to go back to his thoughts and get his thoughts back together. So he's like, so global warming. So in somewhere, I think there's a chef just cracking up saying, add that to the emissions. There you go. Shoot, I'm about 5 minutes back. Hope the breakup crew's doing well. Maybe the politicians will try some trick. Yeah. Yakimondu. Harvard and the other say were corrupted by the fiat industrial complex and are now beyond. Yeah, no, they're beyond saving. They're irredeemable. But what I mean is they're out of our way. They can't obstruct us like they used to, right? So it's great. It's great. That to me, it's like, what are the forces that could keep hyper Bitcoinization down? And they're all very underpowered now, right? Disney underpowered. Universities underpowered, federal government underpowered, um, the banks underpowered. Everyone's underpowered. That's why we're going to win. Samson Mao put it kind of perfectly yesterday when he was calling Balaji's $1 million call on Bitcoin all being based on the weakness of the banks, and then Samson saying, no, 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 it's the sovereign appetite that's going to make it, right? So it's not weakness of banks, it's sovereign appetite. No, 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 it's all of it, plus other things. It's the entire movement of humanity. So it's not one or the other. They're all combined. So Samson was closer to it, but there's even more to it. All right, I got kids yelling, something's going on. Um, Peace, everyone. See you tomorrow. Thanks for sticking with this. This show is produced in 45 minutes. Today was the quickest production I have done in many, many months, but I think it went okay. Anyway, peace, 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 peace.